Today, people surround themselves with others just to avoid feeling alone, scrolling endlessly, talking constantly, yet still feeling empty inside. But in 1900 America, one man chose a different path. In a world that often felt selfish and unforgiving, he made a quiet decision to walk alone. And in doing so, he discovered not loneliness, but the true art of survival. In the winter of 1900, in the expanding railroad town of Cheyenne, Wyoming, a 24-year-old man named Elias Turner stood at the edge of a crowded train platform, watching people rush past him without a second glance. The air was cold, sharp with the smell of coal smoke and steel. Steam engines hissed loudly, drowning out voices as passengers hurried to board or disembark. Elias had once believed in people. He had trusted friends, relied on promises, and expected fairness in a world that rarely offered it. But over the past few years, life had taught him something harsh. Business partners had taken advantage of his honesty. Friends had disappeared when he needed them most. Even distant relatives had turned away when his situation worsened. By 1900, Elias had nothing left. No stable work, no close relationships, and no clear direction. Only a choice. Stay in a place that had already broken him, or walk away and start again alone. He chose the second. With a small bag of belongings and very little money, Elias left the town that once felt like home. He didn't announce his departure, no one stopped him, and strangely, that silence confirmed everything he had already learned. In a selfish world, no one was coming to save him. The early days were the hardest. Elias traveled on foot, sometimes hopping onto slow-moving freight trains when he could, moving through small towns and wide-open landscapes across the American West. He worked wherever he found opportunity, lifting heavy cargo, repairing fences, cleaning stables. The pay was inconsistent, the conditions often rough. But there was something different this time. He expected nothing from anyone, and because of that, he began to see things more clearly. In one small town in Nebraska, Elias worked briefly at a grain storage facility. The owner was strict, rarely speaking more than necessary. Workers came and went quickly, most unwilling to tolerate the harsh conditions, but Elias stayed.
He worked quietly, observing everything. He noticed how grain was stored, how shipments were managed, how losses occurred due to poor handling. While others complained, Elias paid attention. Because now survival was not just about working harder, it was about understanding better. Weeks later, when a shipment was nearly ruined due to improper storage, Elias stepped forward with a simple suggestion. The owner listened, surprised, and decided to try it. The result? The grain was saved. For the first time in a long while, Elias earned something more valuable than money: respect. But he didn't stay. Not because he failed, but because he had learned something important. He didn't need to depend on a place. He needed to build himself. As months passed, Elias continued his journey. He slept under open skies, in barns, sometimes in abandoned structures. He learned how to manage his food, how to endure harsh weather, how to read people quickly, who could be trusted and who should be avoided. The world hadn't changed, but he had. In the summer of 1902, Elias arrived in a growing town in Colorado where construction work was in high demand. Buildings were rising quickly, and skilled laborers were needed. Elias took a job carrying materials at first, but he didn't stay at the bottom for long. He watched the builders carefully, how they measured wood, how they balanced structures, how they solved problems when things didn't fit as planned. Every evening after work, he practiced what he had seen using leftover materials, learning, alone. By 1904, Elias was no longer just a laborer. He had become a skilled builder. People began to notice his precision, his quiet focus, and his ability to work without constant supervision. He didn't waste time. He didn't rely on others to guide him, because he had already learned how to guide himself. One day, a contractor approached him with an offer to oversee a small project. It wasn't a big opportunity, but it was a beginning. Elias accepted, and he proved something important. A man who learns to stand alone can lead without fear. By the late 1900s decade, Elias Turner had built a reputation across several towns. He wasn't famous, he wasn't wealthy in the traditional sense, but he was something far more powerful: independent. He no longer feared failure. He no longer expected loyalty from a world that didn't guarantee it. Instead, he relied on something stronger: himself. Years later, when asked why he chose to live the way he did, Elias gave a simple answer. "I didn't choose to be alone," he said. "I chose to stop depending on what could disappear." His words carried weight, because they came from experience, not theory. By the 1910s, as America continued to grow and modernize, Elias had established a small but stable construction business. He worked with others when needed, but he never lost the mindset that had shaped him. He trusted carefully, he worked consistently, and most importantly, he remained grounded in the lessons he had learned during his years alone. Today, people often fear being alone, seeing it as weakness or failure. But more than a century ago, in a rapidly changing America, one man discovered something different. In a selfish world, walking alone is not a disadvantage, it's a skill. Because when you learn to rely on yourself, you don't just survive, you master the art of living.